It's Tracey from Tea Time with Tracey and Friends. I'm going to do a January reading wrap-up. I didn't get all the videos up that I wanted to this month. I had a fabulous month of reading for the first month of 2025. It's very exciting. I read more books than I thought I was going to read, or what I had planned to read. I'm not going to go into these books in great detail, but I will briefly try to do this quick. So, out of my 25 and 25 jar, I pulled 2 books. This was one of them. I have the whole series bind up of the Chronicles of Narnia. I read the first book. It's The Magician's Nephew. It's about these 2 young children. I forget what their names are now because I read this at the beginning of the month. The little boy's uncle, he's kind of strange and eccentric and tries these different things. Anyways, they go into his office and the little girl ends up falling through a mirror. And the little boy, who is her best friend, is freaking out, thinking, where does she go? We have to go find her. And his uncle, who is kind of conniving, convinces him to go in the mirror with this ring. The only way we can get her back is if you go in. But really, he has alternative motives of trying to get these children. This was all planned. And anyways, it goes from there. It's very short and it's very enjoyable. The next book is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I look forward to reading that. It was a great start to the series, and I enjoyed it. The other 25 and 2025 was Watership Down by Richard Adams. This is, I seen the movie several times when I was a child. This is about a group of rabbits, and the narrative from all the personalities, there's a lot of different points of view, and speaking are at the beginning decide to go find their own wren, like their own den or home, because they feel something negative coming, and the trials and tribulations in the politics of different groups of rabbits trying to compete for different things. They want to get some girl rabbits into their population so they can actually grow as a community. And it was very enjoyable. It's kind of a big book, but I really enjoyed it and followed it along. I don't know who my favorite character was. There is some violence in this. It's not explicitly graphic, but you get close to some of these characters, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm glad I read it finally. And all my life, I've never read it, and now I have. This was a reread for me. I'm trying to work my way through Kresley Cole's Immortals After Dark series because she has a new book coming out in March, and I'm old school fangirl of this series, and I can't wait. And I was on this book. I pulled out Kresley Cole's name. I didn't know which book it was, but it was this one, and it's probably the smallest book, second smallest book in the whole series. This is an MM romance, but it's between a Dacian vampire and a demon. And it's so short. You don't have to read them all in order, but you get more from it. But the Dacian vampire is royalty and from a secret land. The demon is a warrior with no status at all, but very feared and big. Anybody that goes into the Dacian kingdom is not allowed to leave. This demon had gone into the Dacian kingdom because he was friends with this Dacian vampire. They ended up having a little really close best friendship. The Dacian vampire, they kissed or something like that. Anyways, the demon got scared of this because he thought they were just friends, and he's confused about his feelings. So he leaves his kingdom and he's not allowed. So if somebody does that, the assassin from this Dacian kingdom goes out and kills whoever leaves. But the assassin is this guy's brother or something, relation. And anyways, it's a whole tangled little mess, but paranormal creatures, loved it. This book, I really liked it. I didn't know what to expect about this. This came out in 2013, I think. Aletha Romag Consequences. This is a trilogy. This is the first book in the trilogy. It is a dark romance, but there's not really explicit sexual content in here. There is sexual scenarios. You know what's going on, but it's not like in graphic detail, and that's cool with me. It's cool with me. There is abuse in this. There's manipulation in this. There is like full-on physical abuse, and yes, you do see a lot of it. I'm hoping that I will pull the thing to go into book 2 this coming month, because okay. I should have did a whole review on this. The female main character in here, Claire, I think her name is, she works as a bartender, or works as a waitress in a bar. This distinguished man comes in and convinces her to go on a date eventually, and she gets plastered, and they talk, and he's like, would you leave this job if somebody offered to take care of all of your debt and stuff? And she's drunk and out of her mind, and she signs a napkin, and he takes that as a contract and abducts her and takes her to his home, where he's not all this nice and fluffy. He's a son of a bitch. He really is. And he was all nice and cordial to begin with before she went there, but you step out of line and there's effing consequences. So this book ends off where she's in a predicament where he leaves her and she is going down for the count. And you get the feeling that there's going to be a hardcore revenge. I don't know how this son of a bee can ever redeem himself. I'm really looking forward to it. At first I was like, oh, what's going to happen? But now I'm hook, line, and sinker. I want to find out what happens in book 2, and I'm very excited. This, The Black Farm by Elias Withrow. This is an extreme horror, but I found it almost like an adventure, a horrific adventure book. This is about a couple, they lose a child. I think she has a miscarriage, I believe. Anyways, and they fall on hard times. They end up themselves to go into the sweet abyss of death because they just can't take it anymore. Anyways, it's not the sweet abyss of death. They go into this place, they plop out of a red sky into a world called the Black Farm that's ruled by monsters, and crazy things happen. Like grotesque limbs getting cut off, slugs going on your face, and it's not Earth. There's monsters. There's craziness going on. So if you die in this world, you just come back alive in there, and you have to relive all of these torturous things. You have to hide and try not to be found by these monsters, but there's hundreds of them. And it's a world for people that committed suicide, that don't go to heaven, don't go to hell. They go to this Black Farm, and I enjoyed it. These kind of books do not scare me whatsoever. Like, they really don't. This isn't scary to me. It was almost like Alice in Wonderland, only horrific things. Crazy, horrific things. And it was more enjoyable, even though the content was very dark and disturbing. But again, I enjoyed it. This book was not out of my jar. I did Winter Ween by Gabby Reeds. It was a readathon from the 10th to the 16th. I still need to do a wrap up for that. This was one of the books, I thought, like the prompts were haunted house. Read a book that has a house on a cover, or the word house on the cover. So I ended up reading 4 or 5 books for that. This was one of them. It's by Ted Decker and Frank Peretti. I did not care for this that much. I didn't realize I thought this was a haunted house. I really did. And it is kind of a haunted house. This car of friends, adult friends, 2 of them are on the brink of divorce. They get flat tires and they have to go to this house, which is kind of like a bed and breakfast kind of thing. Anyways, the people that are there are bumpkin, and I didn't like the tone of this book. Yes, the bad people in this book are not nice people, but just the whole air of the main characters of these people before they even met these people, I didn't care for it. The word pompous comes to mind. Anyways, they go to this house. They're they call them hillbillies, and the house is strange. It's almost like it's a whole entity, and it shows them bits of themselves, that it shows them their sins, only they have to relive their sins in a different way that the house manifests, and the only way to get out of it is to, there's not really any way out of it, no matter where. They can't go out any windows. There's no, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you got to face your sins and guilt, and, you know, go to a higher power and all that kind of stuff. Didn't care for it very much. I did finish it. I read most of it on physical, but it was a free audio on Everand, and I finished the rest of it there for me to get through it. This one I did pull out of my jar. Disturb Not the Dream. This is one of the most, well, this is absolutely the most disturbing book I read this month, even more so than The Black Farm. Absolutely horrifically disturbing. And this was for that readathon too. I used it because there was a house on the cover. I assumed it was a haunted house, and it is kind of a haunted house, but at the beginning, if you want to see more about this, I do have it in one of the Winterween vlogs, but there is absolutely huge triggers for this book. This book came out in 1981. It's a debut book by Paula Trotchman. I really liked it, but it's really not what I expected. There's incest in this. There's horrific physical abuse in this. There is, death, murder, grotesque, manipulation, heartache, foolishness. But I loved it, even though it was very, very disturbing, and I had no idea. So I like when books surprise me like that. I read this in one day because I just could not wait to find out what happened with these idiots in here. Like, ooh, crazy. That's all the physical books I believe that I read. A couple other books I read for that Winterween was The Snow by Flint Maxwell. Loved it. I had no idea. It was an audio. It was one of the audio books I picked out of my jar. It's the beginning of a series, which I had no idea. I thought, and it has a picture of a cottage on the thing. Here's a picture. It takes place on July 4th. These three friends, they've been childhood friends, but now they're in their 30s, and they had life things happening to them. One was in the military, is retired because of an injury. One was a firefighter, but retired because of a traumatic event. One is a dad that has twin girls at home with a wife. Anyways, they used to go to this cottage when they were kids. Like, their parents would take them up. One of the boys' parents would take them up, and they'd spend, you know, some time at the cottage. So they'd try to relive that, or try to do that now that they're, you know, able to do that again. They go July 4th, having a good time. They meet some neighbors on this lake. There's not really many people at the lake, but this cottage a little ways over. And they go and have s'mores, and it's a jolly good time. Anyways, they go back to their cottage. They're kind of three sheets to the wind after having a good evening on July 4th. And one of the friends wakes up the other friends because it's snowing. And not just a straggle flake. It's actually snowing, like a blizzard. And they, you know, it goes haywire from there. And I loved it. So it's kind of like, this book kind of breaks the fourth wall too. Like, at the beginning, the narrator says, this is when the world ended. So the narrator is actually talking to you, the reader, breaking the fourth wall. And then he goes in to explain this, and then you see it. It's like you're living there. And I really liked it. And it leaves, there is some haunting stuff in this too, like wraiths, if you know what a wraith is, or it's outside in the snow, they'll hear voices or see things like from past traumatic events and stuff. And it was really good. So I do want to finish, you know, go on to the next book eventually. Another book I read was The Mirror by Hash Black. It was a novella. It was an ebook. 152 pages. It was free on Kindle Unlimited. It has a nice mirrored image of a house. And that was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I'm not a big novella person, but this was about a single mom. She had a little girl, Lily. She moved to this house, but this house is notoriously known to the community that it's in. It's a completely different community. She's not from there. She goes and moves there because the house is very affordable. And crazy things start happening, and her daughter is pulled through a mirror, and she's freaking out. And nobody in the community, they all give her the stank eye and stuff because, like, you're not supposed to be here. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. And I really enjoyed it. It wasn't like the best thing in the world, but it's something I read when I was going to hockey practices with my son. Um, and, you know, it's really quick. There is some grotesque stuff in this. Um, she's struggling to try to get her daughter back. She does meet a neighbor. I think his name is Mark. And she, like, the mom is a surgeon. The Mark guy, who is, you know, a couple houses down from her, is a doctor, so they work together, and they, you know, they're getting to know each other, and he kind of gets wrapped up in it too. And anyways, I think that's everything I read. Oh, I forgot one book that I did read this month. It was The Exorcist House by Nick Roberts. It was an audiobook. It was for that winterween, and I had a really good time with that. That was the first Nick Roberts book I ever listened to, read at all. It was about this family. Daniel, he's a psychologist, and his wife and his teenage daughter buy a Appalachian farmhouse that's seen a traumatic event back in the day. And it's remodeled, refurbished, and they go buy it, and it goes, you know, buck wild from there. They find a little door down in the basement, like that one right there. Who knows where that goes to, right? And in that room, there's a sealed up well that has crucifixes all over it. And Daniel, being the smart guy he is, he peels off the lid to this well. Why wouldn't you? And a great big whew of hot air comes out. It freaks him out. He stumbles back. He goes out, bumps his head on his way out, and shuts the door, and things go crazy from there. The construction workers that worked on this house to refurbish it, the head guy had killed himself because he seen something down in the basement, a figure with red eyes, and it was really written at a good pace, I found. Like, I'm not one of those kind of reviewers. I can't be. If I'm totally vibes person. If I had a good time reading it, it's 5 stars. If I was like, it was all right, then it's, 3 stars. Vibes only. But I had a really good time reading this, and I liked where it went, and wasn't scary to me, but it was a good time. And yeah, that was another one. I just forgot to mention it in my wrap up. Oh yeah, I did have some more books, audiobooks. I was just looking at my slips. So I read or listened to 4 audiobooks. This in the month of January, I'm going to say read, even though it was audiobooks. Hour of the Lion by Sherry Sinclair. Read that. That was, I think, on one of my sales. All of these were probably on a sale. This is a lion shifter romance. This is about a young woman. She's in the military, but she gets an injury, so she's put on leave. But as she's on leave, she gets kidnapped by this group down in South America somewheres, I believe. And she's put in this basement, and there's cages of other people. There's a young boy, a teen boy, and they keep trying to tase him to get him to shift, which she doesn't know about shifters. And he ends up shifting into some sort of a lion, panther, or something like that. Anyways, he's abused so much, he's on death's door. She makes her escape and takes him with her. Anyways, he ends up passing. But before he passes, he tells her to please go find my grandfather. He lived with his grandfather at so-and-so place, and let him know what happened. And being all loyal and military as she is, she promises him that she will. And he passes, and she goes. And it's in an isolated wooded area. There's a town, but they're shifters, but she doesn't know that. Well, she doesn't know who's the shifter and who isn't. Anyway, she gets a job at a local bar to try to find out who this grandfather is without blowing her cover that she knows about shifters, because people aren't supposed to know about shifters. Anyways, it goes from there. The place where she gets a job, he has a brother who's the sheriff of this town. Both big, burly, beautiful men. Turns out they're brothers, and they both take a shine to her. And yeah, I had a good time reading this. This is a series. This was a long book. I really liked it, but she was so determined to be military or a Marine or whatever the heck she was. I can't break my loyalty. I have to tell my boss that there's shifters out there, but I promise this little boy that, you know, I would say, and what's the thing, but I'm Marine, I'm loyalty. She doesn't have any family. I'd classify this as found family. She doesn't have any family, so she feels connected to the military. So she doesn't want to betray the military. And it just, I didn't care for that element so much. She was just so ridiculous with some things because she was like, uh, oh, you know, like military. I gotta stay loyal to the military, even though she knows what's right and what's wrong. There's wrong things being done to these people, but even though it's the military or some sect of the government, and she's like, you know, that. I enjoyed it though, and I would read more in this series. Yeah. Another one I listened to was Until I Get You by Claire Contressa. It's a hockey romance. I didn't know. Kind of a darkish. I just finished this yesterday or the day before. Another kind of longish audiobook. This is about a young woman. Oh gosh, I'm getting it mixed up with another one. Well, there is a young woman in it, of course. Just a second. Okay, yes. I was just looking at another hockey romance the other day, but this is the one that I read is it's about a young woman. She's in university, but she wears these big baggy clothes to parties and stuff, and she doesn't really go out to parties. It's her friend that drags her out to this party at one point. And she's standing in this part of the house that normally is where the hockey players kind of stay, and the big hockey player of this I think it's Fairview Hockey this university or whatever, the main guy, the best guy, comes over, and he's like, she doesn't look like she belongs here because she's there in baggy clothes and all that stuff. She's beautiful, but she's, you know, totally not his style. And usually he has women falling at his feet because he's a hockey player, hot shot. He came in and saved the hockey team. Anyways, he takes a shine to her. She doesn't give him the time of day because she really doesn't even want to be at the party. Anyways, that intrigues him because usually he has no trouble finding women at all. They eat, and even amongst his friends, they have bets for school years of how many people. And I'm just like, that's disgusting. But whatever. Anyways, it goes from there. Turns out she is a hotshot soccer player, but she hasn't done it for a year because of certain circumstances. You do find out about that, and it's quite dark and disturbing why she's not taking part in it, but you will find out if you read it. But she is to soccer what he is to hockey, and of course he didn't know that because he's in the hockey realm and stuff. But he ends up crossing paths with her and is interested in her because no woman has ever turned him down, and it goes from there. I did enjoy it. It was annoying at first because he was such a cocky bastard, but I did enjoy it. And I think any hockey romance I read, that's the way they are. They're like, all the women are hockey bunnies or puck bunnies, and I'm just like, kind of whatever. Maybe that's true how it is. I don't know. Probably not, but maybe it is. But in regards to the whole thing, I would say it's a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it, but he was kind of a cocky guy. And yeah, you do find out the darkness. He doesn't have a good relationship with his father, and he's about to go pro, but his father doesn't want him to do. He wants to come and take over this billionaire. His family's billionaires, of course. Why wouldn't they be? And she doesn't have a relationship with her father, and her mother died from certain circumstances, and she's just she has a couple of really good friends, Marissa, and I forget what her other friend's name is, but they're kind of like a little knit group. And anyways, the big hockey player tried to break down her defenses because he's intrigued by her, and it goes from there. And a lot of messed up stuff. All right. Drop Dead by Lily Chu. I didn't do a mid-month wrap-up. I should have done that, but this is a contemporary romance. I'd almost say YA. There's no explicit anything in this book. It's really not my style at all, but it is a contemporary romance about two reporters. The woman is for one paper, he's for another, and they're competitors. So it's, I wouldn't even say enemies to lovers. They compete for the same thing. They trying to get this big interview with a lady that there's a scandal about her, even though she's an old lady. and somebody reported about her. She, you know, and she wants to get the story straight, but they're trying to compete to be the person that interviews her to clear the story. And it goes from there. It was just too mushy for me. I didn't care for it a whole lot. It wasn't bad. It's just, it really is not my style. I need something with teeth, and this had no teeth at all. It had fluffy blowing bubbles at each other is what it was to me. But it was okay. It's just not for me. Okay. Queen Takes Night. This was an audiobook too, and it is a vampire one. I enjoyed this. I actually have the physical book of this. I didn't realize that, but I listened to it on audio. It's just a short little thing. And this is about a young woman that's on the run because she can feel people following her, or beings, monsters trying to catch her. So she has been on the run for a long time. Her mother was murdered by what looked to be vampires or monsters, and she's been on the run ever since. Anyways, near the beginning of the book, she's on the run and she hides, and then she feels the presence again. So she's about to run again, but two men come and save her and kill these monsters that were chasing her. Turns out these men, are big, burly, vampire, gorgeous gods, and they dedicate their life to her because she is a queen, which she has no idea about any of this stuff. So they're trying to help her go find other people like her and find out. This is the beginning of a series. There's a whole bunch of them. Anyways, there is some smutty smut in this. But there is some story too. For as short a book it was, I enjoyed it. It was a good time. So that one there. Yeah. I just checked out my basket if I forgot anything or seen any books laying around. I think that's everything I read this month. And yeah, I had a fabulous time. And taking part in that Winterween was not part of my plan when I first started the month, but then I seen it and I'm like, I can do that. I read horror books anyways. Like, and I have this one from my TBR jar that has a house on the cover anyways. And then like, the audiobooks are nothing to do. So it was fabulous. Just fabulous. Just fabulous. So how was your reading month? Did you have a good time? If you read some, if you read none, that's okay too. Like, it's all good. So I'm going to say peace, love, and happiness today and every single day. Please like, share, and subscribe if you so choose. But if not, that's okay too. I still love you. I still want all the happiness in the world for each and every one of you out there. I certainly do. I really, really honest and truly do. Yes, I do. So, okay, guys, with that, I'm going to say have a good night or have a good morning. And I will see you sometime soon. Bye. Boink.